Right when my fiancé's masterpiece painting just sold at auction for an absolutely astronomical price. A reporter asks her outright, "Is the man in that painting your fiancé, Mr. K?" She just puts on a smile and calmly replies that she and Mr. K are strictly just ordinary friends. So I gently lift my ring finger, showing off a flashy wedding ring, laughing out loud. Of course, we are just regular friends, because I'm already happily married to someone else. That very night, everyone in the crowd watched as Liu Nhin, the superstar standing so proudly up on that spotlighted stage just a second ago, suddenly teared up, her eyes turning completely red. The famous constellation artwork by overnight painting genius Liu Nhin had just been auctioned off for a massive 9-figure sum. Right at the victory celebration, a curious reporter eagerly leans in to ask, "Excuse me, Miss Liu, is the shirtless man painted in that artwork actually your longtime fiancé, Mr. KBT?" Another person immediately jumps in, "If it is not Mr. K, then who else could it possibly be?" Everyone in the entire Jiangthen high society knows that the only man ever featured in painter Liu's artworks has always been Mr. K, bar none. That is right, they have been together for 8 whole years with deep affection. Pretty much the absolute model couple in high society. Mr. K stayed right by painter Liu's side, backing her all the way from total obscurity to massive international success. How many guys would sacrifice 8 years of their youth just to help a woman grow? And honestly, they are not wrong. Liu Nhin and I first met at 18. 8 years ago, we were both the top, most talented disciples studying under master painter Tut Than DG. But later on, a terrible fire badly damaged my right hand, ruining my tendons so I could never hold a paintbrush again. Left with no choice, I had to walk away from art, stepping back to become the man supporting Liu Nhin from behind. Meanwhile, fueled by pure talent and relentless effort, she climbed higher and farther every single day. By age 20, Liu Nhin already claimed first place in a global art competition. Over the next 2 or 3 years, she pretty much swept clean every prestigious international award out there. Liu Nhin's name echoed across the entire world, finally standing at the exact dream peak she always wanted. Thinking of this, I unconsciously tightened my grip on my wine glass. That same gossipy reporter suddenly leans forward again. "Rumor has it you are going to propose to Mr. K tonight at this celebration. Is that true?" Right at that second, a blinding spotlight snapped straight onto my face. Down in the crowd, people start chanting, "Propose to him, marry her already." Watch this reaction carefully. Before I even speak up, Liu Nhin lightly clears her throat twice up on stage, bathed in the bright spotlight. She taps her fingertips against the microphone and gives a faint smile. "Sorry, Mr. K and I are purely just business partners at the art gallery. We are strictly just ordinary friends. He is definitely not my fiancé. And the man painted in that artwork is not him either." The moment she says that, the whole hall erupts into chaos. Every single eye locks onto me, some looking suspicious, some full of pity, others staring with totally unreadable expressions. Up on stage, Liu Nhin's gaze sweeps right over to me, carrying a playful taunt mixed with a hint of disdain. Seeing me trapped in such an awkward spot seems to make her happy, but unfortunately for her, she is bound to be disappointed. I lift my head with a bright smile, gently lifting my left ring finger to show off the prominent ring. The famous painter Liu's fiancé is obviously not me, because I'm already committed to someone else. That night, every single guest clearly witnessed how the woman who stood so proudly and arrogantly on stage a split second earlier, Liu Nhin suddenly teared up with bright red eyes. December 24th last year was my birthday. Liu Nhin explicitly promised to celebrate it by my side, but somehow, she completely vanished without leaving a single trace behind. I called her 16 times, but she never picked up. I waited alone until 12 a.m., when the midnight chimes rang out in endless, heavy silence. My birthday slipped away just like that. I quietly lit the candles all by myself, watching the flickering flame sway back and forth, pulling my thoughts right back to 8 years ago. On this exact day back then, that quiet, reserved girl held a homemade cream cake, blushing deeply as she whispered, "BT, give me 8 years of time. And 8 years later, I will marry you, okay?" That warm candlelight had glowed red across her blushing face. Back in the present, I blow out my lonely candle and eat the cake in silence, the cream tasting completely bitter and hollow. But get this, at 1 a.m., I finally received a text message from her. She wrote, "Sorry Tuk, I am busy. Can I make up your birthday tomorrow?" Sorry, Tuk. I chuckled bitterly at such a weirdly distant, unfamiliar nickname. Before, she always called me BT. And during our deepest romantic moments, she softly whispered a K. She had never once called me TUK. I stayed awake all night, while she never came home. At dawn, I habitually checked WeChat, and a familiar status update caught my eye, making my breath hitch. Posted at 1:30 a.m. Read 10 years away. I am finally back home. Everything changes, but luckily someone was still willing to wait for me. That caption came attached with the photo showing a woman's back wearing a black coat. That was the exact autumn Burberry trench coat that I personally picked out for Liu Nhyn. The very next day, Liu Nhyn had to attend an extremely important art exhibition. The event started at 2 p.m., but she only showed up at the entrance around 4 p.m. She had heavy dark circles under her tired eyes, and her hair looked completely messy, her suit collar disheveled. The event organizers were furious, completely unable to accept an award. Presenter arriving 2 hours late. I am out here smiling and apologizing to absolutely everyone just to clean up this mess. It took Liu Nhyn handing over 2 of her zodiac paintings as compensation before our clients finally backed off and dropped the whole issue. She stands there looking down like a kid caught doing something wrong, voice shaking as she apologizes. But I am not in the mood for games, so I cut straight to the chase. I ask where she went last night. Panic flashes in her eyes before she blurts out that she was picking up Ex-Fiancée. She tells me he just got back into the country and does not have any family around here, so she is the only person he knows. Apparently she had zero plans to go out, but he blew up her phone with 10 calls straight. She swears up and down that absolutely nothing happened between them. She reminds me how loyal she has been all these years, claiming she just dropped him off at a hotel and came right back to the studio. She insists she stayed there all night. You know how guilty kids make excuses and just keep rambling on. The harder they try to hide something, the more they desperately over-explain. It is just basic liar instinct. Her face goes bright red, and she completely stumbles over her own words. I know her way too well to buy this half-truth. Sure, she quietly sneaked back into the art gallery that night, but it was actually 4 in the morning before she arrived. I ask why she hid it, gently fixing the messy fold on her collar as I speak. She suddenly grabs my hand and whispers that she was terrified I would get mad. But why would I possibly be angry over this? I point out the guy is literally her brother. Yeah, the actual truth is pretty deeply ironic here. Ex-Fiancée is her stepbrother, brought into the family back when their parents decided to get married. Years ago, her mom and her stepdad tied the knot, both of them bringing their own kids along to build a brand new blended family together. 10 years back, Ex-Fiancée risked absolutely everything to chase his girlfriend overseas. But that grand, romantic gesture completely blew up in his face. His ex completely betrayed him during a massive career slump, coldly snatching up every single asset he had to his name. She even managed to get full custody of their newborn kid in the end. Left with zero options, he came back completely empty-handed. Just like Liu Nhyn said, the guy has absolutely nothing left. Since getting back, he has been struggling hard to find any kind of decent work. He actually used to study art with us, so she suggests letting him help out around the studio for now, until he finally lands a real job, and moves on. She gently hugs me from behind, her warm breath against my neck. She begs me to trust her, promising me a huge surprise once Ex-Fiancée is finally settled. I am fully ready to refuse, but before I even speak, Ex-Fiancée suddenly appears right at the gallery door. He is just as ridiculously handsome as ever, like time completely forgot to age him. Honestly, the universe always gives incredibly good-looking guys an unfair free pass. Just a simple white shirt, worn a little messy, but it is still more than enough to make everyone in the room turn and stare. He tells me it has been a long time. That perfectly measured smile and the tiny mole by his eye make him crazy charming. The kind of guy nobody wants to say no to, but I reject him anyway. Honestly, with Liu Nhyn pulling in massive income and fame, her brother could comfortably stay unemployed forever. She could fund 10 more guys without breaking a sweat. But Ex-Fiancée just smiles and shakes his head. He claims a real man needs to build his own solid career. He says if you just leech off a woman, the second you lose your value, she is totally going to throw you away. Must be remembering his brutal history overseas, because his eyes suddenly go red and his voice gets all choked up. Liu Nhyn looks totally heartbroken seeing this, instantly promising she will never, ever abandon him. Meanwhile, I just stay completely silent. What a deeply touching sibling bond. But honestly, our studio does not need extra staff. I use that perfectly polite excuse to reject him. promising I will help him find better work elsewhere instead. But guess who shows up the very next morning? He is right back inside my gallery, rocking a fitted shirt and perfectly creased trousers, showing off his tall build, broad shoulders, and incredibly sharp haircut. He is casually sitting right in the center of the room, acting as a live model while my sketching students crowd around to draw his portrait. My assistant BT Hong runs over frowning, complaining that the guy barged in at the crack of dawn and absolutely refused to be chased out. The guy literally bought gifts and snacks for all the young students, completely winning them over. Hearing it was portrait day, he just confidently parked himself in the center for the kids to sketch. Talk about stubbornly clinging on. I asked BT Hong what the deal is. I ask if he dislikes the guy. BT Hong frowns even harder, warning me that YNH is seriously bad news and I need to stay sharp. Honestly, YNH used to be exactly like this years ago, totally obsessed with being surrounded by an adoring crowd and soaking up all their admiration. He honestly had insane natural talent back then, but eventually, he just got totally bored of painting. He complained that actual art was way too messy for his clothes, so he preferred dressing up flawlessly every single day, just sitting right there in the gallery while everyone else painted him instead. He absolutely craves having every single pair of eyes locked onto him, playing the main character of the universe. But talent only gets you so far. If you absolutely refuse to put in the actual work, the universe eventually strips away all those gifts. And just like that, YNH was completely left behind in the art world. He fell deep into a flashy, luxurious lifestyle, and before even graduating college, he just ran off with some rich girl he met online. That little trip lasted 10 whole years. Yet the young students at our art studio actually really like him. After class, they crowd around me, chattering away. Next time we do portraits, we want to draw Big Brother YNH again. BT Hong stands right beside me, just grumbling, you kids really have zero manners. How can you call him brother? You should absolutely call him uncle. Call YNH Uncle Yang. Standing right there in the crowd, I can actually see YNH's face darken a few shades. I have to say, this quick little tactic of his winning people over and striking first is actually quite effective. He successfully grabs a spot as a sketch model right in the studio, telling the kids not to worry. He won't bother everyone for too long. Just give me 1 month, he says. Once I find a job I like, I will leave immediately. But exactly a month later, everything takes a completely different turn. That day, YNH welcomes the very first snowfall of the winter. A painting Liu Nhyn finished half a year ago just sold at auction for a pretty massive price. The studio prepares a nice celebration party for her. The party happens at this totally high-end club. But get this, the second our waiter walks over, we all freeze dead in our tracks. YNH stands right there among the waitstaff, looking incredibly out of place. He is wearing a work uniform, his ears and nose flushed totally red from the cold. One of our studio colleagues recognizes him immediately, completely shocked, yelling out, "Brother Yang, why are you carrying a tray out here?" YNH freezes up, his eyes getting red, lips trembling slightly. He stutters for a good while, not able to finish a single sentence. That look of him trying so hard to act strong definitely makes people feel a bit sympathetic. Suddenly, his heel slips, the tray in his hands completely loses balance, and a bowl of hot soup almost spills right onto his legs. But Liu Nhyn instantly rushes forward, using her own arm to block that scalding bowl. The entire bowl of soup spills right over her arm, and ironically, a painting drawn by this exact same hand just sold at auction for 8 million yuan. Truth is, that hot soup was never going to hit YNH anyway. The tray tilted left, meaning at worst, it would have just splashed onto the floor. But Liu Nhyn reacted way too fast, probably panicking out of pity, completely forgetting to protect herself in the process. Tomorrow, she literally has to attend a highly important international art convention, which is a massive deal. Terrified this burn might ruin her ability to paint, I quickly grab some ice to cool it down. Liu Nhyn just stays totally silent, looking completely grim. I check the burn and let out a quiet sigh of relief. Luckily, that soup wasn't too hot, so she should be fine. Meanwhile, YNH looks ridiculously worried, eyes turning red again as he constantly apologizes. He just keeps blaming himself. It is fine, not that serious, I tell him, mostly just trying to stop him from panicking too much. But out of nowhere, Liu Nhyn pulls her hand away from me, standing up to gently wipe the tears right off YNH's face. Then, right in front of me, she actually hugs him, softly comforting him. The very next second, she turns back to look at me, her eyes turning so incredibly cold. Almost like I am a total stranger. She snaps at me, "You only care about the money. You are just terrified. My hand is ruined and I cannot paint anymore, right? That massive bowl of hot soup just spilled. And you do not even care if Ex-Fiancée got badly burned. You are only obsessed with checking my hand. KBT, if you did not force Ex-Fiancée away, why would he suffer, having to work these menial jobs just to survive? If not for that, I would not have gotten burned at all. I earn you so much money every year. That's still not enough? Can you really not tolerate Ex-Fiancée just this once? Have you absolutely no shame?" But then later that night, Ex-Fiancée actually stands out in the freezing snow, begging for my forgiveness. She claims she was just way too agitated, and since he is her brother, she simply lost control and blurted out all those incredibly hurtful words. I let out a cold laugh. "Do you actually think he sincerely took a job there?" Ex-Fiancée looks at me, completely bewildered. "I already asked the manager, he only started working there today. He knew perfectly well we were holding a celebration party there, so he intentionally showed up just to put on a pathetic act." Enough. Ex-Fiancée suddenly cuts me off, veins literally bulging on her temples as she glares at me, screaming, "Do not ever talk about Ex-Fiancée like that." She raises her left hand, squeezing that fresh burn so hard it actually bleeds, dark drops falling into the pure white snow. And honestly, never once has Ex-Fiancée ever exploded in anger at me like this before. Every single time we talked before, she was always so gentle, voice as light as the wind, never using harsh words. But now, for the first time ever, she is screaming at me over another man. "I absolutely will not allow you to talk about Ex-Fiancée like that." Right at that exact moment, it hits me like a truck. Since Ex-Fiancée returned, Ex-Fiancée has not called him her brother even a single time. After that huge fight, Ex-Fiancée and I stay pretty distant for a while, but I still go to the studio daily. That place is the true passion project we both built together. I basically poured all my remaining strength into it after losing my own ability to paint. It feels just like my own kid, every tiny detail holding my hard work and soul. Meanwhile, Ex-Fiancée stays at the studio, continuing that little job he loves so much. But right now, he is not just a standard model for the students anymore. He has become Ex-Fiancée's own exclusive private model. I cannot even remember when exactly he started showing up in her new paintings. Or maybe, in reality, he never actually left those canvases to begin with. Because previously, Ex-Fiancée used to really love drawing me. She used to stroke my short hair, gently brushing my cheek while calling me her absolute, perfect masterpiece. Almost every single painting of hers featured the silhouette of a young man lingering right in the frame. She claimed that silhouette was me, and I foolishly believed her completely. Looking back on it now, I just laugh. Turns out, I was only ever a convenient replacement all along. 6 months ago, Ex-Fiancée and I officially went our separate ways. That afternoon, as I pushed open the gallery door in the warm sunset light, Ex-Fiancée was half-dressed, leaning back against the sofa with a lingering look of smug satisfaction, written all over his face, like someone enjoying the quiet after a private encounter. Ex-Fiancée sat right there, his messy dark hair clinging damply across his collarbone and chest, while faint but unmistakable deep red marks were clearly visible all along his neck and waistline. Those marks trailed right from below his ear downward, a sickening sight that instantly burned into my eyes. Ex-Fiancée held her brush, preparing to paint that exact scene. Seeing me walk in, both froze in panic as she blurted out, "KBT, it is not what you think. Just let me explain this to you." In her sheer panic, suddenly, Ex-Fiancée knocked over a bottle on the floor, white paint spilling out everywhere and mixing with a strange thick yellowish liquid. A revolting smell immediately hit my senses, making my stomach churn in disgust. Absolutely repulsive and cheap. I clenched my fists tightly and turned around to leave the studio immediately. Ex-Fiancée reacted fast, rushing over to block my path while begging KBT to believe it wasn't what it looked like, but my heart was already cold. The woman I loved for 8 whole years, who once rushed into a blazing fire to save me, had somehow turned into someone this shameless and dirty. I let out a bitter laugh right at her. "So tell me, what is the truth, then? Don't dare claim you gave yourself up for art. Do you even realize who that man in the painting is? That guy right there is literally your own brother." I practically screamed that last sentence at her. Terrified by my reaction, Ex-Fiancée frantically shook her head, saying Wang Nh was not her brother, and had never actually been her brother. She kept begging for forgiveness. KBT, do you even understand what happened? Lately, the stress over the Luki Award was driving her insane, leaving her creative mind totally blank. Saying that, she became increasingly agitated, her voice trembling uncontrollably as she tried to defend herself. This year's competition theme is Mad Destruction, finding complete rebirth out of broken ashes. Now listen to this comeback. I coldly cut her off right there. Mad destruction and rebirth means you do disgusting things with him? Then you take that filth and mix it into paint that was supposed to stay clean and completely pure. She stood completely stunned, staring at me with hollow eyes. Looking straight back at her, I gave a cold laugh. Liu Nhyn, wake up. The person who actually needs a rebirth isn't you, it is me. Saying that, I shoved her aside, trembling all over. Before walking out, I heard Wang Then's voice sounding pathetic and spineless like an invertebrate creature, whispering softly right into her ear behind me. Oh YN, you did brilliantly. KBT simply doesn't understand true art. You sacrificed everything for artistic brilliance. But what about a guy like him? Over all these years, he gave you absolutely nothing, only sucking you dry, draining your creativity, and slowly turning you into an empty shell of yourself. Saying that, he watched me walking away and sneered, asking what someone like me could possibly know about real art. YN, remember this well, anyone with a dirty heart sees filth in absolutely everything around them. Liu Nhyn and I officially separated, thanks to security camera footage proving her actions. She was forced to leave the studio empty-handed. There was absolutely no way I would ever let her keep this gallery for herself. KBT, have you really thought this through? She asked right before leaving, claiming we could still work together and continue managing this art gallery side by side. Isn't all your current fame and status entirely thanks to everything I did for you? Without even raising my head, I coldly told her to pack up fast, because cleaning crews were arriving soon to disinfect the studio. Her face turned pale with fury as she snapped that without her, I am nothing. She yanked my sleeve up, exposing the jagged scar running along my arm. You are just a ruined man who cannot even hold a brush. Right then, Wang Nh casually stepped out from behind her. His tone dripped with mockery, calling me not just washed up, but completely ungrateful as well. YN, if you knew he'd act like this, back during that fire years ago, you should have just left him behind to burn away alongside that biased teacher of yours. Smack. Without hesitating, I landed a clean, heavy slap right across Wang Then's face. 6 years ago, Liu Nhyn and I were both students training under Master Toot Then DG. Honestly, the greatest mentor in the entire world. That evening, Liu Nhyn and I stayed behind at the art studio very late just to finish our competition pieces. Master Toot dedicated himself to guiding us, even saying that I had the real potential to take first prize in that competition. But that catastrophic night, a sudden blaze broke out, destroying my artwork and taking our mentor from us. Trapped deep inside the inferno, I was losing consciousness fast. Right before passing out completely, saw Liu Nhyn rushing in to rescue me. After being pulled out, I luckily survived. Most of me healed fine, but my right hand suffered severe nerve damage from the burns, leaving me forever unable to hold a brush. Master Toot tragically didn't survive that fierce blaze, so dealing with immense grief and regret, I stepped backstage to help Liu Nhyn build her gallery, working silently in the shadows behind her success. My heavy slap left Wang Nh completely stunned, but seconds later his eyes glared with rage as he raised his hand to strike back. Right at that critical second, a slender hand firmly grabbed his wrist out of nowhere and pushed him forcefully backward. Who gave you permission to strike my person right outside this gallery? That freezing voice echoed out clear as day, so familiar that it froze me right in my tracks. I look up, and it is Elm Huvai walking in, the biggest investor backing Lai Thi. She is the daughter of the wealthiest man in the entire city. Despite her young age, she is already famous for being a completely ice-cold wealthy heiress. Her father worries constantly about his stubborn daughter, sincerely hoping she can just settle down, live a peaceful life, and maybe soak up a little bit of refined artistic elegance along the way. A few years ago, specifically to help her build that artistic vibe, her father actually sponsored our studio, which is how the Lai Thi Gallery finally started taking its real shape, its very first original form. Seeing Elm Huvai arrive, Liu Nhyn immediately holds back Wang Nh, who is about to blow up. because her big auction 3 months from now completely relies on the Elm family. But why Ang Thenh cannot swallow his intense anger. Pampered since childhood, how could he possibly accept getting slapped by me for absolutely no reason? He angrily smooths back his messy hair from my wild strike. He is just about to curse me out when suddenly, a little art student rushes right over and bites his thigh hard. You big monster, do not dare bully our teacher. Right then, a dozen other kids run out from the back, working together to push both Yang Thenh and Liu Nhyn out the door. Yang Then's face turns completely green with rage as he yells out, KBT, you absolute loser, without me and Yn, you are literally nothing at all. Elm Huvai hands me a wet wipe, telling me to clean my hands since just looking at them feels dirty. She watches Liu Nhyn leave and sighs, BT, that is genuinely pathetic. Your girlfriend just ran off with another guy. I shoot her a glance and reply, Miss Elm, you have lipstick on your teeth. I always knew Liu Nhyn used to have feelings for Yang Thenh. He grew up incredibly handsome. Among our batch of art students back then, he was the top guy in terms of sheer looks. The absolute dream model for young girls experiencing their first crush. And that naturally included Liu Nhyn. However, those secretly hidden youthful crushes rarely ever lead to any real result. I actually thought that once Yang Thenh left, her lingering affection for him would finally end too. The day he risked everything, rushing into that massive fire to save me. I honestly assumed he had completely vanished from her heart for good. Liu Nhyn never once complained about my ugly scars. Sometimes she would take her brush and paint them into a glowing galaxy, and at other times into a vast ocean of flowers. Her eyes used to hold so much deep affection for me. I always believed that inside her heart, I was the only one. Not long after Liu Nhyn and Yang Thenh moved out, the ownership shares of the Lai Thi Gallery were completely redistributed. I still held 30%. Now watch how this shifts. She originally promised to leave her shares to me, but then she completely changed her mind. She told me to spend 50 million to buy her out. She said, KBT, you can absolutely post that specific video online, but think carefully, because if you release it, I do not know if it destroys me, or ruins your Lai Thi Gallery too. KBT, I really do not understand what is wrong with you. We were clearly doing great, and could have stayed together for a long time. So why insist on breaking up? Nothing happened between Yang Thenh and me. I'm purely doing this for my artwork. You know I would risk absolutely anything for art, even sacrificing everything I have. I honestly thought you would deeply understand me. I coldly type a few words on my phone. I will buy back your shares. The other side stays totally silent for a moment before replying. Can you not just soften up for once? You are always so tense. Besides, where would you even get that much money? I just send her a poop emoji and block her immediately. Then I go straight to Yang Then's post about starting a new life away from toxic people. Leave 2 poop emojis right there, and firmly block him too. The truth is, I do not actually have that much cash, but Elm Huvai definitely does. Later that night, I knock on my neighbor's door. Seeing it is me, her expression instantly turns a bit awkward. Blocking the doorway, she asks, Mr. K, what do you need this late at night? I push her hand aside and walk straight to the sofa. I can teach you how to paint, but you have to agree to one condition. At this point, the Elm family heiress puts on her arrogant attitude again, actually wanting to bargain with me. I flick on the light in her private studio, and this setup is wild. Inside sits an easel, an egg on the table, and a half-finished sketch of that exact same egg. I point right at it. What kind of art teacher did you have? 3 years of lessons, and you are still stuck at the basic egg shading stage. The Elm family has run massive businesses for generations, but Elm Huvai's grandfather was actually completely obsessed with raising bonsai trees and pet fish. He also kept birds to cultivate his mind, and even did some pretty deep research into fine arts. The old man placed extremely high expectations on Elm Huvai, desperately hoping she could achieve some real success in the art world too. That intense passion directly influenced her own father, so even while managing his massive business empire, he also carefully organized various cultural art festivals, incredibly large-scale domestic painting exhibitions, high-level elite art exchange meetings, and even exclusive high-end art auctions, all of which were officially hosted and entirely backed by the wealthy Elm family. He even directly invested capital into Lai Thi under Elm Huvai's personal name, deeply hoping she would soak up that creative, artistic atmosphere right from childhood. But unexpectedly, Elm Huvai is an absolute black hole for art. She understands literally nothing about drawing, frustrating countless famous masters until they finally quit in anger. In the past, Grandpa Elm actually asked me and Liu Nhyn to help teach her. I made an excuse about poor health and refused, while Liu Nhyn was way too busy. So teaching Elm Huvai got completely put on hold. Who would have guessed that little delay would stretch on for 3 or 4 whole years? And yet, she was still stuck drawing basic eggs. But what about your hand? Elm Huvai finally asked the question out loud. My right hand had been badly burned in that terrible fire 6 years ago. I had not picked up a brush in ages. I gently flexed my fingers, smoothly grasped the handle, and in just a few quick strokes, finished the sketch right in front of us. Elm Huvai stood there completely speechless. For 6 whole years, how many lonely late nights did I spend quietly picking up that brush, fighting through the sharp pain, stroke by stroke, recreating every vivid image in my mind. At first, I could barely even hold the brush steady, watching it clatter to the floor over and over again. But every single time, I stubbornly bent down and picked it back up. Time after time, those old scars would split open and slowly heal over, fresh skin forming just to tear right open again. This grueling cycle repeated itself more times than I can count, until finally, I managed to finish an entire painting all on my own. It was not entirely flawless yet, but I felt genuinely proud of it. Just like that, Elm Huvai stepped up and bought out Liu Nhyn's 30% stake. From that moment on, she and Lithy completely severed every single tie between them. In the days after that, my routine got back on track, running Lithy hard while dropping by the Elm estate every single week to teach Elm Huvai how to paint. Meanwhile, Liu Nhyn kept popping up in all the fancy art magazines. Only the guy standing right beside her arm had been switched out for Nh. After leaving Lithy behind, leaning on her old reputation in the industry, she launched a brand new gallery called Nh Fine Art Studio. When BT Hong heard the news, he just rolled his eyes hard. If things stayed peaceful like that, it would have been fine. But pretty soon, we bumped right into each other at a massive Jiangth art exchange event. At this grand event, nearly every famous painter and top gallery across Jiangth brought their very best artwork to compete, along with several great pieces entered by Lithy's most talented students. I also secretly brought along one special painting of my very own. The central theme for this year's exhibition was vitality. Funny enough, Liu Nhyn chose to paint around that exact same topic too. She painted a pine tree, while I painted a ginkgo tree. Both pieces ended up placed right in the center gallery, making the whole atmosphere feel more than a little awkward. Quite a few visitors stopped around that display. People whispered that Master Liu really outdid herself because her pine piece looked truly extraordinary. Absolutely right. Her brushwork looked so refined and detailed that every single pine needle and sturdy branch stood out crystal clear. Exactly, the tree stood tall against the wind, making the whole canvas radiate an intense sense of vibrant energy. Hearing all that praise, Liu Nhyn lifted her chin a few inches higher in pure pride. She did not even bother glancing at the artwork hanging beside hers, my ginkgo canvas. Right about then, the crowd shifted their attention over to that other piece. Someone asked why anyone would paint a tree like this. For vitality. Has it completely withered away? The whole canvas is covered in fading yellow leaves without a single spark of energy. Nh glanced down at the studio tag, saw the name Lithy, and sneered out loud. Good grief, they cannot even grasp the basic theme properly. Asked to paint vitality, but submitted pure decay instead. These tiny amateur studios really do not know their own limits. They should honestly hire an elementary tutor just to teach them how to read basic prompts. Little did that arrogant guy know that painting belonged to me, since he assumed it was just made by some random student. Nh took a few slow steps right up toward the painting, pointing directly at it. If you draw a ginkgo, just draw the tree. Why deliberately expose messy roots above ground? It looks absolutely hideous to look at. I told everyone before, without Nhyn around, this studio Lithy is absolute nothingness. I did not even bother arguing back, because I came here to enjoy an exhibition, not get dragged into petty drama. When the time arrived for the grand award announcements, the special presenter stepping up was Liu Nhyn. She stood right up on that stage, opening the final winners list, and froze completely still, taking a long, silent moment before finally reading out loud. First place goes to Lithy Studio for their piece titled Ginkgo. The entire hall erupted in murmurs as Nh immediately shouted out absolutely impossible. Did somebody make a mistake here? Quite a few people in the audience looked pretty skeptical too. Right then, one of the head judges, Elder Rang Trung, slowly leaned on his cane and stood up. His steady voice ringing out, "Our theme today is vitality." At first glance, Lai Thi's ginkgo painting only shows yellow fallen leaves that look faded. But hidden right beneath that thick layer of leaves are powerful roots, twisting deep into the solid earth. Now pay close attention to this breakdown. What looks like decay on top actually conceals raw survival instinct and enduring vitality, pushing through hard underneath. This masterpiece made our entire judging panel feel an indomitable will to live that even eternal destruction could somehow never erase. He paused for a brief second before continuing. The ginkgo tree carries hundreds of millions of years of history, standing tall as one of the most ancient living organisms on Earth. The painting title, Survived Yet Forgotten, harmonizes so perfectly with our central focus on enduring vitality. Therefore, our entire judging committee unanimously agreed that this breathtaking piece truly deserves to be crowned the most outstanding artwork of this current exhibition. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall stayed dead silent for 2 seconds before erupting in thunderous applause. But hold on, look at who interrupts next. YNH shattered the mood by yelling, "This canvas is a fake. Lai Thi has no student capable of painting with brushstrokes like that. If my eyes are not mistaken, that coloring technique and brushwork belong to the signature style of Master Painter Toot Then DG, the legendary artist who departed years ago, right?" His accusation sent the entire hall into absolute shock, as people familiar with Elder T immediately nodded in agreement. Exactly right. That is Master T's signature style. From what I know about him, the only disciple Master T ever accepted was Liu Nhyn. So could this painting actually be a clever imitation? Or maybe just a direct copy? In just a split second, I became the absolute center of everyone's suspicion. Liu Nhyn stood up on the stage, her expression completely unreadable. She could easily speak up and prove that I was also Master T's student, but she didn't do a thing. She just stood there quietly, like a frozen statue. Right at that exact moment, a loud commotion echoed outside the exhibition hall. Surrounded by a massive security detail, Elm Huvai gently guided her grandfather inside. The respected art connoisseur that everyone in the entire painting circle looks up to stepped inside. Elm Huvai led him straight over to the ginkgo painting. "Grandpa," she says softly, "this right here is Teacher K's authentic artwork. I told you before, he is truly amazing. Master T's genuine disciple." Old Master Elm gently stroked his white beard, accepted reading glasses from his butler, and leaned down to study the painting for a really long time. Finally, he wiped away his tears and let out a soft sigh. So it really is Toot Then DG, definitely that old man's signature style. Such a pity, especially when remembering that horrible fire from years ago. The entire hall went pin drop silent in an instant. A few seconds later, someone finally spoke up. "So what? I used to study painting under Toot Then DG back then too." YNH stood inside the crowd and muttered it quietly. "You quit after barely 3 months. Does that even count as studying?" Standing right next to me, BT Home smiled with hidden meaning. I knew full well, Elm Huvai brought her grandfather along just to back me up. That evening, I visited her place to say thanks, but she suddenly handed me a thick folder instead. "Hold your thanks and look at this first." The file looked pretty worn out. The outer label clearly indicated the Phoenix Alley fire incident from 2013. That was the exact fire from years ago, billowing black smoke and intense heat. Every single memory I experienced back then came rushing back into my mind, crystal clear. My voice trembled. "Why are you showing me this document right now?" Elm Huvai opened the folder, flipped right to the final page, and pointed at the clear conclusion, "Caused deliberately by human hands." No way, that is impossible. My heart completely skipped a beat. That blaze caused massive damage back then, leaving one person severely injured and another gone forever. The one who didn't make it was Master Tit, and I was the injured one. Plus, countless masterpieces of his were completely burned to ashes. I still clearly remember the official investigation claiming it was just an accidental tragedy, blamed on neighborhood kids playing with matches near the wall and sparking a disaster. That is what they claimed, Elm Huvai whispered softly. But did you ever stop and wonder why those kids were playing with matches right below your studio? And more importantly, who actually gave them those matches? It felt like a lightning bolt struck my mind as I stared, frozen at the photos on the table. "Consider this my real gift to you," she whispered. "Now watch this turn of events. So Teacher K, take a break from teaching art this weekend." She blinked playfully, looking like a kid wanting eager praise. But you have to do me a favor first. Cut to another day. Liu Nhy's prized painting just sold at auction for a staggering 9-figure sum. Up on stage, a nosy reporter asked if the rumors were true about her planning to propose to teacher K during tonight's celebration banquet. Is it true? Liu Nhy smiled smoothly. He and I are just ordinary friends. And I am definitely not his fiancé by any stretch of the imagination. I raised my left hand, showing off a shining wedding ring. Of course she isn't, I announced, because my heart is already officially taken. Right at that exact second, Elm Hu-Vi stood up from beside me and gently locked her arm around mine. Oh, goodness, since when did my own husband become someone else's fiancé? Usually so icy and composed, Liu Nhy completely panicked, almost dropping her microphone right onto the floor. Right at that moment, Nhy stepped out from backstage dressed in a sharp suit, grabbed Liu Nhy's hand, kissed her cheek, and proudly declared I am her real fiancé. I just smiled and slowly applauded. Truly romantic stuff. Now, let me give you two a wonderful wedding present. I pulled out every single document Elm Hu-Vi had collected and handed them over to the staff. Display this on screen right now, and let the whole room see just how deeply rotten and corrupt this arrogant genius painter Liu Nhy truly is. You guessed it right. Inside that folder sits undeniable proof that Liu Nhy directly caused that terrible tragedy years ago. Under the fake excuse of buying paints back then, she deliberately left a box of matches right by the studio entrance. She knew full well that neighborhood kids always hung around our studio doors playing superhero games, and that colorful box of matches instantly caught their curious little eyes. Right before that, Liu Nhy conveniently tossed discarded drawings into the trash bin by the door, sketches featuring cool fire-breathing monsters from the exact superhero show those kids loved. She wasn't even certain it would work, but tried it anyway out of pure, petty jealousy, just to destroy my competition artwork. All because Master Tit praised my potential to win first prize. She let toxic jealousy poison her entire mind, but she never imagined the flames would spread out of control and trigger a devastating tragedy. Maybe out of sheer guilt, she ran back into the flames to pull me out so I wouldn't get consumed by the blaze. For years after that, whether driven by remorse or actual love, she treated me incredibly well, never once looking down on my scarred hand. Absolute silence. Every piece of her wrongdoing flashed across the massive screen, while police officers arrived at her residence and successfully recovered that exact surviving matchbox. She bought 10 matchboxes total, leaving just a single box at home. She tried over and over, and only on that 9th attempt did everything finally play out exactly per her plan. Then a raging fire broke out, consuming everything. When Nhy saw all of Liu Nhy's crimes laid bare, he instantly sensed bad news and quickly let go of her arm. Liu Nhy turned pale as a ghost, staring at me with deep resentment mixed with sorrow. Her lips trembled like she wanted to explain, but ultimately, not a single word came out. By now, the auction house had taken that landscape painting for appraisal, and the final results confirmed it was nothing more than a cheap copy. That's right. For all these years, Liu Nhy has basically just been tracing. She secretly hid away the real paintings belonging to our late master. Turns out, not every single masterpiece of his was destroyed in that tragic fire years ago. Before the flames could spread, Liu Nhy had already smuggled out a batch of his art and stashed it somewhere safe. At first, she merely mimicked Tooth and DG's signature style and delicate brushwork just to pass off as her own original artwork. But eventually, blinded by greed and fame, she started tracing his canvases stroke for stroke, an exact, one-to-one replica. Consequently, the whole auction got cancelled, the artwork confiscated, and she faced a hefty fine worth 3 times the painting's value. At this breaking point, everyone turned against her. Nhy immediately tried to wash his hands of her right on the spot, shouting that they weren't even close, and she was just clinging to him. Then he tried to bolt. I coldly called out, "Don't rush off so soon, your turn is up next." Right after that, fresh photos flashed across the big screen. Hard proof showing Nhy conspiring with investors to launder dirty money. Turns out, that entire 9-figure valuation placed on Liu Nhy's artwork was completely fabricated from the start. Everything happening today, from the high-stakes auction to that romantic proposal, was meticulously orchestrated by Liu Nhy and boss Kim Tin pulling strings behind the scenes. The winning bid money would merely bounce through Liu Nhy's bank account just for show. and then immediately get transferred right back into the pockets of the shady investors. Liu Nhyun took a 10% commission, with Yang Nh fully in on the scam. Now look at her, the returning first love exposed for what she truly is. You can see it happening right here. Hardship acts like a mirror revealing true monsters, leaving all her lies and schemes with nowhere left to hide. Now, the only thing waiting for Liu Nhyun and Yang Nh is the harsh judgment of the law. Once the noisy crowd dispersed, I collapsed back into my chair, feeling like all my energy drained right out. I let out a soft sigh. Outside, dark clouds scattered as warm sunlight filtered through the overcast sky. A gentle figure walked over and sat down right beside me. I slipped the ring off my ring finger and softly thanked her, saying I appreciate you playing along with my drama today. As a little reward, you can skip this week's art assignment. I'll personally put in a good word with Grandpa Elm. Elm Huvai chuckled softly, taking the ring from my hand. She squeezed it tight in her palm, looking up with a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, Teacher K, just skipping homework is a pretty cheap payoff. I froze up, and before I could process it, my fingertips felt cool. She had slid that exact same ring right back onto my finger, smiling as she said her grandfather gave strict rules. She giggled. Our family heirloom ring can only be worn by a grandson-in-law. Now, switching over to my story, I am Elm Huvai, daughter of Jiang Then's wealthiest tycoon. My grandpa and dad adore art, but I'm completely different. I just love the man teaching me how to draw. His name is KBT, such a wonderful guy, but sadly he doesn't like me back. He already had a girlfriend, and she turned out to be an absolute two-faced snake. But his painting skills are amazing. I figured KBT must prefer girls with real art talent, so I searched everywhere across Jiang Thenh, hiring the best painters around to teach me. Everyone praised my incredible natural gift, yet just a few days later, they always made excuses and quit tutoring me. I felt so upset, but I kept practicing diligently every day, just so I could quietly stay by KBT's side. Now check this out. Patience really pays off. I knew Liu Nhyun was absolute trash, so being younger, I patiently waited her out until my real chance finally arrived. Liu Nhyun showed her true colors and ran off chasing another wealthy man, leaving only me standing right beside KBT. I know he once loved her, but guys really don't get it. Women have sharp intuition, and one glance told me Liu Nhyun was nothing more than a fake, manipulative fraud. Determined to make KBT see her ugly true nature clearly, I secretly started investigating that devastating studio fire from years ago, the accident that injured his hands 6 years back. And that was when I uncovered an absolute, earth-shattering secret. Later on, KBT asked me to act out a play alongside him, pretending to be his fiancé at Liu Nhyun's art auction just to drive her completely insane. But why would I ever settle for acting just once? This time around, I'm definitely holding onto him for real. Absolutely without fail.